remember cheering for China in the Olympics when I was a kid, before I kind of understood all of the terrible human rights things that happened. Because guess what my parents never told me about? Like the Cultural Revolution that they went through. Like there's a lot of kind of wanting to shield the younger generation from the bad stuff. So I can understand the feeling, but she is put in a position now where she is essentially covering for the Chinese regime in a lot of ways. Like when Peng Shuai came and watched her win the gold medal at the Olympics, somebody asked her, like a reporter asked her about Peng Shuai. And then she was like, oh, yeah, like it was just really great to see her happy and healthy and like out here doing her thing.
Being controlled by the Chinese Communist Party?
Yeah. And maybe she doesn't know what's happening to Peng Shuai or doesn't really, or believes, the IOC when they say that, like, nothing's wrong with her. She's totally fine, while the government minders are watching her every move.
And you can see them in the mirror.
But yeah, so I don't know. It could be ignorance. It could be denial. It could just be that she doesn't care. Yeah.
Well, yeah, regardless, like she is now in the history books of, winning an American competing for China to win a gold in the Genocide Olympics.
Yeah, and I think that's it, right? If she was just competing for like another country that wasn't committing genocide, she would not be getting a lot of these questions.
Yeah, like she's going to be an example of like the blindness people had to the Chinese Communist Party.
Yeah, and she's not the only example. Like if you ask me, like Ray Dalio is a much better example, or Larry Fink, or people who are continually for decades pumping money into the Chinese regime. But
and I would argue that Ray Dalio and Larry Fink, they're in a position to know much better, right?
Yeah.
Than like, a teenager who is Eileen Gu is like about 18 or
she's
something.
18. Right? She's been going to China and kind of having a very privileged life in China since
she was standing next to Xi Jinping.
Yeah.
Yeah. So of course that's one element of it, right? Which is that there's a China that the Communist Party wants you to see, and especially what they, the way they treat the elite. It's kind of rolling out the red carpet, nice hotels, top tier cities, all that stuff. And while only a fraction of 1% of Chinese citizens live that lifestyle, that is what people see when they go to China, especially the more like journalists, congressmen, wealthy investors, business people are all getting that like top 1% type tour. And so like I understand on one hand, like it's easy to fool people with that. And if Ray Dalio can be fooled, like an 18-year-old can certainly be fooled. But I think it'll be really interesting to look back. Like I would want to interview her 10 years from now and just be like, looking back, how do you feel about this? I mean, she may not want to answer that question, but like I think that the perspective will change.
Yeah. And I think we're in the middle of when she decided to switch to China in 2019.
It was pre-COVID.
It was pre-COVID. It was pre most of the Hong Kong stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I think that people's perception of the Chinese Communist Party has changed a lot in the last 2 years. Yeah. 3 years now. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's probably part of it. Of course, we already knew what was happening in Xinjiang to the Uyghurs, right? Like that had already been reported, but it didn't get as much mainstream traction.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think a bad situation all around. And like an awkward thing also is that Eileen Gu is probably getting a lot of attention, partially also because she's biracial.
Mm-hmm.
And like in China, there's still kind of like a lot of places. This might be changing now because Xi Jinping is doing this whole like we shouldn't be like looking to the West and Western culture, etc. But for a long time, like models, they would want like Western models rather than Chinese models. They would want, like there was like a prestige in Chinese advertising and things like that attached to things from the West. That like, remember there's a Chinese mattress company that hired some random like old white guy to be the face of their mattress company. I forget the name of the mattress company right now, but they wanted it to look like an Italian mattress company. It's a Chinese mattress company. And it became famous all over China and Hong Kong because you would constantly see this guy's face everywhere, and no one knew who he was.
Did we see that when we were in Hong Kong?
We saw that. He's like kind of like an emaciated looking,
I remember that.
like with glasses, and looks really creepy. I think that's also part of it, that everybody's like, who's this guy?
Yeah, I remember Alan, our photography guy, making jokes about him being like the bed Nazi.
Yeah, so we'll put up photos like this guy. And the Wall Street Journal recently did an investigation to look into who this guy was. Yeah, it was some random Western guy who had been living in China in the 90s, I think, and had done like a photo shoot for.
Wow.
Yeah, and then like he became famous all over China. He passed
interesting.
away a few years ago, so I don't know that I don't know if he knew about his fame, but like it's kind of like a crazy thing. So Eileen Gu being beautiful, just like you, Chris.
Yes, thank you. You didn't need to say it because it's known, but thank you.
Yeah, and like biracial, like she has like, so she's exotic to Chinese people, which is kind of in the way that a lot of people see like Asians as exotic in America. Like being half white makes you exotic in China. So there's like a lot of other stuff kind of coming into this whole situation.
Yeah, well, because the Chinese Communist Party has definitely encouraged Chinese people to be ultra-nationalistic, suspicious of outsiders. So there is a whole racial dimension to this.
And I think that's why a lot of this, having a lot of like Western faces in advertising and stuff like that, that's going to be not okay pretty soon if it isn't already changed. But that's the way it was in China for a long time. That mattress company stopped using that guy.
Oh, that's so sad. The bed Nazi.
It's weird, those ads that are like around for years and years. Like, remember the Dr. Zismore ads in the New York subway?
Yeah, that is like I think you'd have to be in New York before 2010 or 2012 to have seen them.
Wait, really? Oh, wow. I've spent way too much of my life in New York City.
In the subways.